News of Kenyans dying of hunger have now become part of a cycle of perennial shame, revisited every so often as drought hits the country. The current drought crisis, described by relief agencies as the worst to hit East Africa in 60 years, did not catch policymakers or relief agencies by surprise. The writing has been on the wall for a long time, with the Meteorological Department sounding the alarm as early as November last year.
We're expecting La Nina to really take effect from middle of February. So we're expecting it to actually get worse as we move towards April, May.
We're getting very prolonged droughts. You remember the drought of 1998 up to about 2001. That was a fairly prolonged drought. We had a recent one from about 2007 up to 2009. And now the current one.
The situation is further aggravated by poor planning and execution of a food security policy by Kenya's government. Even after the repeated droughts and evidence of Kenya's vulnerability to the vagaries of climate change, Kenya has continued to depend on rain-fed agriculture. It was not until last year that the government heeded calls to dedicate at least 10% of its annual budget to agriculture. Rather than focusing on long-term strategies, the government has been caught in perennial firefighting.
I recall in November last year, the Prime Minister issued a statement predicting, or rather giving the situation that there would be drought in the country, and that in March this year, through a supplementary budget, we passed, and I stand to be corrected, about 5 billion shillings to mitigate the situation. Could the Prime Minister tell us how that money has been used?
That money was used for the purpose that was intended, in order to deal with supplies to the refugees.
Anti-corruption activists have long pointed out that with the introduction of procurement laws, emergency response schemes have become the main cash cows for unscrupulous politicians and technocrats. Livestock off-take programs launched to help mitigate the drought have led to the loss of hundreds of millions and are currently the subject of an anti-graft probe. There are similar probes over the distribution of relief food. Even measures to grow more food have been tainted. Earlier in the year, KTN exposed a scandal at the Tana River Development Authority where millions allocated for irrigation as part of a national food security strategy were looted or misused. That Somalia is the country worst hit by the drought and famine comes as no surprise to many observers. War-torn and without an effective government for nearly 2 decades, the people of Somalia have had no leadership towards attaining any semblance of food security or mitigating the effects of climate change. Any foreign help they might have received at the grassroots was withheld for fear it might benefit Al-Shabaab and other insurgents. The international community is now in a frenzied bid to mobilize interventions to save the people of Somalia. They are, however, yet to resolve the political dilemma of giving aid to Somalia, given concerns about terrorism and piracy. Apart from hoping the drought will spur Somalia to turn against Al-Shabaab, the world has seemingly turned its back on the country, leaving its African neighbors to spearhead efforts of restoring peace and stability in Somalia without much success. There are no signs the current crisis will be addressed differently. The cycle is bound to recur.